At issue this morning, countdown to the New Hampshire primary. In less than 48 hours, Granite State voters will hit the polls.
Former President Trump's opponents have long held their fire against him, but that changed this weekend with Nikki Haley going after his mental competence. We'll show Trump's comments that led to the new line of attack.
And our exclusive new primary tracking poll shows a slight shift in this race. But is it a positive trend for Nikki Haley as she tries to catch Donald Trump? At issue starts right now. Good Sunday morning. Welcome to New Hampshire and welcome to a special live edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I am Sue O'Connell. As you can see, we've taken the show on the road. We're in Manchester at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel. This is where all the big media outlets have set up to cover the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah, we are here for the next hour, taking you right up to meet the press before we're back at our regular time slot of 11:30. We've got a slew of guests for you that we think you're going to want to hear from. They represent a diverse range of voices all along the political spectrum. But maybe most important, Sue, they're New Hampshire voters, right? We got to hear from them.
We're less than 2 days away from the polls opening, so we're focused on the leading candidates in the Republican Party. We're going to hear from them coming up.
And, of course, we're also looking at the Democratic race. President Biden not on the ballot, but some familiar faces are in the Granite State rallying Democrats for a big write-in campaign.
And this morning, we're getting a look at our latest exclusive Suffolk University NBC 10 Boston Globe New Hampshire primary tracking poll. 500 likely Republican primary voters were asked who is their first choice. Former President Donald Trump has increased his lead. He's up 2 percentage points from yesterday to 55%.
No change for Nikki Haley overnight, though. She is still in second place, coming in at 36% of support. And Ron DeSantis remains in a very different and distant third place. His focus has shifted out of New Hampshire, his support dropping to 6%. 2% of folks still undecided, even as we approach the primary. Of course, big-time coverage calls for a bigger team. So let's go ahead and bring in our colleague, NBC 10 Boston political reporter Matt Pritchard. And Chris Ryan is here as well, host of New Hampshire Today on WGIR AM. He's been covering this race for more than 2 years now. Chris, we're good to you. But Matt, let's go ahead and start with you. You've been in Manchester kind of longer than some of these candidates have. Your sense of the rallies that you've been to, where are the bigger crowds going, and who has the most enthusiasm?
Well, I think you have to start that conversation with Donald Trump being able to basically sell out an arena last night with his supporters here in Manchester. So certainly the former president is still being able to drum up the support that we have seen him have over the last 2 election cycles. The question is, will it be enough for him when we get to Election Day on Tuesday? Nikki Haley, she's had a lot of support as well. The different venues that she has been at have been absolutely packed, and voters have been telling me that they are encouraged with what she is saying and hoping that she can be a different option for them as they head to the polls, and even some Ron DeSantis events. So you have a lot of people out there that still want to hear what the Florida governor has to say, but of course, as you guys mentioned there, the polling says he's going to have a rough night on Tuesday.
Chris, this has been the most chaotic, weirdest primary season I think I've ever experienced up here. I imagine it's the same for you. Nikki Haley is making headway, but what does she need to do to catch the president or come in a solid second?
Yeah, I think she has to bring in voters that are kind of outside your polling at this point. Independent voters who may not be getting sampled, individuals who've moved to the Granite States in the last couple of years after COVID, and individuals that are frustrated with the current status of Donald Trump and Joe Biden as the frontrunners in these races. And we saw Haley take a bit of a different tact. It obviously would have been malpractice if she hadn't gone after some of the things that Trump said, particularly in confusing and conflating Nancy Pelosi with herself. But I think that the focus down the stretch of the campaign for Haley is to increase the number of voters that aren't within the polling at this point, independent voters who aren't that interested in politics but can play a significant outcome in this election.
All right, Chris, you mentioned those comments from the former president, which has moved this issue of mental competency to the forefront of the Republican race. It all started with a comment that he made at a rally on Friday where he appeared to mistake Nikki Haley for Nancy Pelosi regarding the response to the January 6th insurrection. We're going to play that sound from the former president and then see Nikki Haley's response on the backside. Take a look.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, you know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything? Deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that. These are very dishonest people.
When you see them hit a certain age, there is a decline. That's a fact. Ask any doctor. There is a decline.
All right. As far as I know, none of us are doctors. None of us have degrees in psychology. But Matt, this issue of mental competency on the Republican side now front and center. In all of your talks with voters before these comments, had that ever come up, Donald Trump's mental competency, some of the sort of confusing remarks he makes while on the stunt?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do have those concerns about Donald Trump. I also think they have those concerns about Joe Biden. I mean, this folds into the broader conversation that has been, we have Donald Trump at 77-year-old. We have Joe Biden at 81-year-old. Most people are saying they'd like to see younger blood coming into the race. And really, Nikki Haley, throughout the campaign season, has said that she feels like there should be term limits in Congress. There should be competency tests being taken. And so really this folds easily into a tried and true stump speech moment for her, especially as she's trying to frame this race as a one-on-one matchup between her and Donald Trump.
Chris, you said malpractice if she didn't go after Trump on this. There's a lot of things she hasn't gone after Trump on, or most candidates haven't, because we assume that she doesn't want to upset the base. Is she threading a delicate needle here, or can she just go after him and not worry about the MAGA base?
You got to play to win the game, and I've been saying that all week, right? I mean, if you're going to beat an incumbent, if you're going to beat a championship team, you can't expect them to lose. When they make mistakes, you have to pounce on them. This was an egregious mistake a couple days before the campaign, where he didn't just say it once. He said 4 times that Nikki Haley was in charge of security. There's 10,000 National Guard troops. You know, she has the tapes, and he just kept saying it over and over again and didn't correct himself. And Haley, again, and if she's going to have success, has to play to the 75% of Americans and Granite Staters that say they don't want a Biden versus Trump rematch. Well, this is your chance, right? So you're either going to go out and make it happen here in New Hampshire, or if you end up with the Biden versus Trump rematch, you know, New Hampshire had its shot, independents had their shot, and there's really no complaining.
In our last 30 seconds, is this Ron DeSantis' Waterloo? Is this make or break for his campaign?
No, I think he's going to go on to South Carolina. I had a good conversation with him the other day, and he was laying out some of the reasons that he thought this hasn't worked out for him. He was ahead of Trump a year ago in the UNH poll, 42-30, and he thinks that conservative media has helped Trump. He thinks that also him and others didn't really quite understand the hold that Trump still has on the Republican Party. So I don't think this is it for DeSantis. He's drawing good crowds in South Carolina. He knows he's going to have a really bad result here in New Hampshire, somewhere between 5 and 10%. So I think he moves on, and that's still a month away in South Carolina. Maybe he doesn't make it to voting there. Things don't work out, but he's continuing.
Matt, 20 seconds. What do you think?
Yeah, I also got a chance to speak with Ron DeSantis earlier on this week, and essentially he feels like he's going to continue on, but I think it's been interesting from his campaign, the strategy of going to Florida, South Carolina, New Hampshire. He's jumping all over the place. Where are you going to be, Ron? You know, pick one.
All right. Chris Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Good to be here in New Hampshire. Matt Pritchard's going to be back with us in a little bit. When we come back to At Issue, Eva Castillo, director of the New Hampshire Alliance for Immigrants and Refugees, is going to join us to discuss one of the top issues in the 2024 election.
And have you ever heard of the Free State Project, the libertarian movement to transform New Hampshire into a liberty mecca? The man who founded it is here to offer his analysis of the race and the candidates and to tell us how the project is progressing. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Welcome back to our live edition of At Issue, coming to you from Manchester, New Hampshire. Joining us now here at the set is Eva Castillo. She's the director of the New Hampshire Alliance for Immigrants and Refugees. And James McKinn, you know him well by now, president of the Manchester chapter of the NAACP. Thank you both for being here. We really do appreciate it. Eva, I want to start with you. Tell us what your organization does and what the issue of immigration and refugee services looks like in New Hampshire.
Well, I am an immigrant rights organizer and advocate, and we are a refugee resettlement state. which resettle refugees, and the situation we have 80,000 immigrants, not too many anyways, but we have to make really fight for them because people don't understand the values that immigration brings to the table and to our state.
In Massachusetts, we've seen housing has been an issue, getting these folks work permits because they want to work, they want to make a living. What are the challenges that these folks face here in New Hampshire?
The same thing, there's racism and xenophobia and this nationalism that has permeated the airwaves, especially in the political agendas of everybody. So it really is affecting everybody, not only those that are newcomers, but those like me that have been settled here for a long time.
James, what are you hearing from the candidates while you're out there, especially, obviously there's no Democratic primary to speak of, but there is the write-in. How's it going with the write-in effort for Joe Biden?
I think the write-in effort is going really well. I'm seeing the emails blasts that are going out. They're using social media really effectively. So I think that's going well. But what I think is going to be an interesting challenge to that is the write-in for the ceasefire. And I see that starting to build momentum. So we'll just have to see in the next 48 hours or so whether that takes hold as much as those folks would like for it to.
Immigration, migration, certainly top concerns when the Republicans are talking about it. The Democrats, how do you feel they have been addressing the issue in contrast or in agreement with what the Republican candidates are saying?
So I think, the Democratic candidates have somewhat been silent on the issue. And I think one of the challenges that they're seeing is to get into the discussion at all. And in one sense, it's like they're letting the Republican Party just run with it and see where it goes. And I think that might be a really smart strategy, because just to get into it is just not going to be good for them, I don't think.
Eva, we've heard some really harsh rhetoric on the Republican side. I think of Donald Trump's comment that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country. What are you hearing from both Republican candidates and from President Joe Biden that concerns you? Because you mentioned the nationalism part of this.
Right. Well, what concerns me is that the Republican Party is running on an anti-immigrant platform. That's all you hear about. They don't talk about what they're going to do for the rest of the nation. They're going to do they talk about what they're going to do against immigration and to back immigration, make sure that no more immigrants come here and to hurt immigrants here. So that, and the fact that the Democrats keep silence, it is a tactic for them to win votes, but at the same time it's allowing the air to be permeated with this anti-immigrant sentiment. So I'm not too happy with it either,
What would make you happy? What would you like to hear?
It would make me happy to have somebody stand up and say, you know what, we're going to talk about all the benefits that immigrants bring to this nation. We are the second oldest state in the nation. We need the labor that immigrants bring here and shift the narrative of immigrants from a burden to an asset, which is what they are here to do, work and contribute to our society.
I want to ask both of you this question. I'll start with you, Eva. Latino and Hispanic voters are going to be a huge voting bloc for whomever wins the race. What are those issues that are important to those Latino and Hispanic voters, and not just speaking about immigration, of course?
Well, basically the same thing. They're members of this community, so the same issues that affect the economy, the housing, the drug addiction, and we are members of this community, and everything that affects the community at large affects us as residents of the country.
James, Latino voters, we know they've helped President Biden get to office. They've hurt him in some states. How do the Democrats make sure that they can shore up that voting bloc come election time?
Well, I think they recognize that Latinos are not a solid bloc, right, for one, and that there is benefit. I mean, Latinos are seen as immigrants. So just as Eva said, any challenge that the immigrants have, Latinos have. So seeing and speaking about Latinos as individuals with dignity and value, that's what I think will make sure that they will vote in ways that will support the Democratic Party.
Eva, what's the message? What's the one message you would like all candidates to hear when it comes to immigration?
we are in the shoes of your ancestors right now. The same reasons why your ancestors migrated to this country for a chance of a better life for their children and their descendants. That's what they were trying to do. Give us a chance. We are here to contribute to our society, and like James said, treat us with dignity and humanity, because we are all the same.
It is certainly going to be one of the biggest issues in this election on the Republican side and on the Democratic side. James, we appreciate it. Eva, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Thanks for joining us here on that issue.
Appreciate it.
All right, still to come, Jason Sorens, founder and executive director of the Free State Project, is here. Is there anybody who's speaking to folks who consider themselves a little more libertarian than conservative? At Issue is back after this.
The Free State Project is simply about getting people who believe in freedom and limited government to move to New Hampshire.
We are the live free or die state.
We all agree on the one important thing, which is non-aggression principle. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff.
Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff.
We believe in economic freedom, personal freedom. We want government to be as local as possible.
That's just a sampling of Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of New Hampshire, the incredible NBC 10 Boston original docuseries on the Free State Project. The docuseries followed the libertarian political migration known as the Free State Project. 20 years ago, one man wrote a manifesto encouraging 20,000 libertarians to sign a pledge and move to the Granite State for more freedom.
And joining us now is that man, Jason Sorens, founder and a director of the Free State Project. Jason, thanks for joining us this morning. We just heard a brief description there, but in your own words, what is this movement about and where are things at right now?
Yeah. The Free State Project is trying to create a free society in New Hampshire by attracting people of broadly libertarian philosophy, strong individual rights, limited government. And so thousands of people have moved here. A lot of them have gotten elected, have proposed legislation that's been enacted into law. So really, we're progressing forward. We just hired a new executive director. The movement is growing. New Hampshire always has had a libertarian flavor to it, and that's only grown because of the Free State Project.
Right there in the motto, right? Live free or die.
That's right.
All right, so how many Free Staters do you think are in elected office here in New Hampshire? What are some of the successes that you've had legislatively?
At the state level, it's about 30 to 40, depending on how you count. And at the local level, several dozen, I would say. So in terms of policies, that's meant, we've focused on things like tax cuts. New Hampshire's done a lot of tax cuts recently, has advanced gun rights, has decriminalized marijuana. So these sorts of policies that libertarians favor. You've seen New Hampshire do a lot of that because of the efforts of elected libertarians.
Let's talk about this primary coming up on Tuesday. Yeah. Are there any candidates who you feel are speaking to the values of Free Staters, speaking to the issues of Free Staters, and are there any who have just ignored the movement and maybe ignored the libertarian folks out here in New Hampshire?
So first of all, I'm putting my neutral analyst hat on. I have not endorsed this primary, but libertarians don't have a clear candidate this time the way we did when Ron Paul was running, for example. But when he was part of the race, Vivek Ramaswamy actually made a significant effort to reach out to us. He came and spoke at the Porcupine Freedom Festival that we hold in the summer. He's dropped out now, and you see, I think, the libertarians here in New Hampshire have lined up on two sides, more for Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. You've got Americans for Prosperity pushing Nikki Haley. I have to say, among grassroots libertarians in this state, she has a foreign policy problem, and a lot of them would rather vote for Trump than vote for Haley. So I think Ron DeSantis might be gaining a little bit of momentum just among the grassroots libertarians here. This was always going to be a tough state for him as the kind of true conservative candidate. Those candidates don't usually win New Hampshire, but a lot of libertarians are kind of moving toward him by default right now.
For a while, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's running as an independent, was here in the Democratic primary, the rogue Democratic primary that was happening. I heard from a lot of the folks that I met while working on the Free State Project docuseries that he was their candidate. Is that what you were hearing as well? And do you think his absence has had people pull back from participating in any primary voting?
Yeah, I mean, I heard that a few months ago. Certainly, I think with the COVID issues, there were a lot of grassroots libertarians who moved to him on those issues, but I think he's disappointed them on just about everything else. And so I really do not hear a lot of support for him now among the grassroots libertarians here. So you might find a few people even vote for Dean Phillips, like the people who liked Andrew Yang, some of the more left libertarians, but that's really going to be just a handful of people on that side. So really, it's everything is to play for right now, and I see some momentum perhaps for DeSantis.
Something that you just said there struck me. You're saying there's a sort of right-left divide even among libertarians? Explain that.
Yeah, so I mean, some libertarians prioritize the social issues more and criminal justice reform and things like that. They might even be open to things like basic income that Andrew Yang was supporting. And the majority of libertarians, though, are focusing on the free markets, and I think a lot of libertarians have moved because of COVID and because of issues like cancel culture and things like that have moved more to the right over the last 3 years. So where you might have seen maybe equally sized left and right wings of libertarianism, say 8 years ago, I think it's become much more aligned with Republicans lately.
Okay.
What's the update on Free State Project, or for the Free State, getting folks to move to New Hampshire and the future of the party, if you will?
Yeah. So again, so the Free State Project, we're just a nonpartisan nonprofit. So we try to get people to New Hampshire. Then once they're here, it's up to them what they do. They can be Democrat, they can be Republican, Independent, Libertarian Party, and so we get hundreds of people moving every year, and it's great to see. I can't even meet nearly all of the people who are moving here all the time. There's so many events happening. If you go to nhcalendar.org, that's kind of the New Hampshire Liberty Calendar, and you see all the sorts of things that are happening. Every day something's happening around the state. So it's a really lively kind of environment. If you're part of that philosophy, part of the movement, you're going to get really excited and energized just by visiting here. So it's still growing. We're financially healthy. We're really excited about our new management. So I think you're going to see a lot more coming from the Free State Project here in New Hampshire.
All right. Jason Sorens with the Free State Project. If you're interested in that docuseries, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of New Hampshire, it is streaming on Peacock. You can also find it on NBC10Boston.com.